Well, good morning, everybody. I was thinking this weekend about some of the severe weather we watched move across the United States, and so I thought we'd do a quick update on where we currently sit statistically here on the count of tornado, hail, and wind reports. So the first graphic is from the Storm Prediction Center, and it's looking at the total number of tornado reports we've had so far this year. So we're sitting at about 100 above average on tornadoes. On the hail side of things, we're sitting about 700 reports above normal. On the hail reports, we're at 6252 through Saturday. And on the wind reports, we're something like 4,000 wind reports above average. So this continues to be a year where we've seen just a lot of severe weather damage. Just going to the Storm Prediction Center's page to kind of recap the weekend quickly here. This was back on the 11th, looking at nearly 300 reports of severe storms, including some very large hail that was in parts of the upper Midwest. We then go into the 12th, and a lot of severe wind reports across parts of the east, including numerous tornadoes that were in parts of the eastern Corn Belt, plus a large complex of storms that clipped this part of South Dakota. And as you get into the day on Sunday, a lot was here in the southern plains and parts of the Mid-South, but also some stronger storms in New England. So we're just kind of recapping what we've seen. Now I want to stitch this together and give you a total precipitation map. So when you look back over the last 72 hours, we've watched a couple of things take shape here. There's been a larger ridge, of course, that's been sitting to the south, and it's kind of funneled quite a bit of moisture around the northern side of it. Some of this, very importantly, clipping this section here of the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. This region had been quite dry. We then have a deeper low that's sitting here that this morning is trying to deliver a lot of rain over parts of Wisconsin. And over the weekend, while Missouri, as I'll take these drawings off here, got a lot of rainfall, parts of the Dakotas got a lot of rainfall. We were worried last week that we could get some severe storms into this area on Sunday, but we talked on Friday about how the southern storms were going to kind of ruin the environment. And they did. I mean, it just really kind of took what was potentially in this area in terms of a bigger severe weather outbreak kind of out of play. But what I want to do next is I want to walk you through kind of a series of maps just to understand where we currently sit on precipitation. And the next one here shows hail over the weekend. So just as a reminder, these areas across specifically the central United States just continue to get pounded with respect to very large hail events. And you can see several of these storms producing over baseball-sized hail. That would be in this shade of color right in through here and here. But here's the next precipitation map I want to show you. So this one goes back over the last 7 days and just looks at total accumulated precipitation. Now remember, it was the week before that this section of Missouri getting into Kentucky and Tennessee saw some places up to 15 inches. So this is on the tail end of that. But extremely wet throughout the Tennessee Valley, throughout the Mid-South, getting into New England, and bigger rains in parts of the Midwest. We did see a couple of deeper lows curl up over the Northwest as well, which is why we got some, halfway decent moisture out of some of these over what has been an extremely dry area here. But there have been places that have missed out on this, and we need to take a look at how kind of severe the drought is getting in some pockets in through here, and also down in the south. So from here, I'm going to stretch it out to 14 days, but this map is a percent of normal map. So we're no longer looking at total, we're looking at compared to normal. And just several areas begin to jump out at me here. This part of Mississippi, getting into Louisiana and Texas, just continues to just be tucked too tightly underneath the ridge to have any sort of moisture return. At this point, we need to see a pretty seismic shift in the pattern or a tropical system to begin to bring some relief into this area. I've been quite concerned about parts of the Carolinas getting up in the mid-Atlantic, showing up drier as well. And as we talked about, the flow, which was really dominated by a motion like this, was kind of making the Blue Ridge and the Appalachian Mountains so much more of a factor that could create a rain shadow here on this side, and we've certainly seen it. Large sections of the upper Midwest and Northern Plains continue to be dry, and then you see along the West Coast these areas that are just showing up with drought problems that just continue to compound, and our forecast to continue as we go forward. So another way to look at this is month-to-date precipitation statistics. So we're looking at the rank by climate district going back to 1893. So I just wanted to stress again the severity of the heat and the drought that's down here to the south, and how important the rains are this morning going through parts of Wisconsin as an example. But we begin to identify these areas that just continue to miss out on extremely heavy rainfall and the lack of a really truly well-organized southwestern monsoon. Now, there are a few things that are changing in this pattern that are going to be quite important that could help drive the monsoon and really revive some of the rainfall parts of the drier spots in the west. In fact, we're even watching a tropical system that could come into California or come into the southwest with some of its moisture. But this ridge that's been over Texas, as we talked about last week, is opening into the central United States. Some of the models we're putting in the middle part of the country here, what we call a 600 decameter, 500 millibar ridge. That means it's above 6,000 meters in height where we're getting these 500 millibar pressures, which is quite rare. And therefore, this is going to be a significant shift overall in the temperature and precipitation pattern, with storms running the ring of it rather than diving through it like we've been seeing. But before we get there, I want to give you the latest update on the soil moisture data. So just to point out again how critical these rains are moving through this section of the country right now and today, is delivering some much needed moisture there. But these other regions just begin to really pop out as the severity of both the flash drought and the longer duration drought in those areas gets worse. And again, I'm watching this area very carefully going forward. So this is what's going to be changing. This is our upper level height pattern right now. And we're going to come back to talking about these waves in the tropics in a few moments, especially the ones out in the Pacific. But what is changing is this right here. So we've had this deeper trough that's produced ridging in the west, ridging in the south, and it keeps kicking systems that roll through the country, kind of following this particular trajectory. And here's the deep one that we have this morning right now. What is changing in this pattern is really the upstream side of it, which is this deeper trough over the Aleutian Islands. That's going to be going away. And as it does so, we'll stop seeing these lows kind of curl up in the midsection of the country. If I take you back to yesterday, you can see it quite well. Big storms down south, big storms in the southeast, low curling up here over parts of, South Dakota. A lot of cloud cover and rain out ahead of this. And on the back side where the ridge is really building in, you can see all of the wildfire smoke from the, some of the western U.S. fires right now, which is going to continue to be a concern as we kind of press forward in this forecast. So what does the forecast hold? Let's start on the severe weather side of it. This is today. We can see that throughout parts of the Appalachians getting to the mid-Atlantic, we're going to keep an eye out on severe weather. But I do want to watch the back side of this here just to see what could happen in the eastern Corn Belt later today. I'll show you the radar animation in a second. This would be tomorrow, getting into the 15th. So we're going to watch North Carolina, this part of Virginia. And remember, this is an area that's very dry. So to be getting a chance of getting some storms in that area is something I'll be on the lookout for. And then as we play forward into the 16th, we're going to watch the upper Midwest as our last front comes clipping through here. And then we're going to watch a lot more thunderstorm activity beginning to return to this area as late in the week the ridge opens into the Midwest, and that delivers better flow around its periphery to hit this area with some rainfall. Now, as you just noticed, we have 3 more days of at least a slight risk, so I thought I'd update you quickly. Going back to the first one of these on June the 8th, the last time we've seen anything less than a slight risk was June the 7th, and the calendar just shows all the way through the 14th today that we have had a slight risk every single day, so very active severe weather season. Okay, so first animation is this morning's high-resolution rapid refresh model, the HRRR. So this is where we begin. And you play through the morning this morning, and we can see the heavy rains moving through the Ohio Valley, through parts of Wisconsin, the tail end of that front getting all the way back here to the panhandles. This is through this morning, getting into early afternoon. So do you see the isolated convective events here that are happening kind of just as the main front slides through parts of Illinois into Indiana? Just want to keep an eye on this region later on today, okay? This whole pocket in through here. But good soaking rain into southern Wisconsin, which is desperately needed. This moves into Michigan by tonight. Then the whole system kind of spreads out here in the eastern Corn Belt. Now, as that happens, look at what we've got here. This is kind of opening up in a manner that really begins to mimic what we would hope to see with the southwestern monsoon. And we're going to get some better moisture coming to this area quite soon. But this is tonight, getting into tomorrow, early in the morning here, and stretching this out as far as the high-resolution rapid refresh will go, which just takes us to about 1 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon Central Time. So the first low kind of spreads out here toward New England during that time frame. Remember, we'll watch this late on Tuesday over here along the East Coast, where we've got this risk on Tuesday night. From there, I'm going to just show you the newest update from the WPC. And as we have a close look at this, notice the better monsoonal flow. We have the 2 systems, so this is the one coming through now, okay, and last night, and here's the one we watched this morning, and then we can see this all getting into New England. After this is done, this is it though, really honestly for this area for a while, as this ridge really begins to expand in the central part of the United States. So that's your next 7 days from the WPC, and take note of the rain that is expected to come into Florida. And in a few moments, we'll talk about what the tropics are up to. So I want to flip over to the European model and let's get a good look at what it's suggesting here. So we've already seen this right here. So this is this morning, getting into this afternoon and this evening, playing into tomorrow morning, afternoon, and evening. So that's when we'll watch the risk of storms here. Now already high pressure is built in, but this has got cool air in it. This is not the heat dome that's coming in later. That's in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Here's our next system rolling through parts of the Canadian Prairie, some stronger winds with this one. This will be out there Wednesday night. So we're going to watch a front dive through here as the low goes over parts of Ontario. And you can see that moving through the Great Lakes, clipping parts of the Eastern Corn Belt and the Eastern Great Lakes here. This is by Friday. And now we start to see the overall pattern shift. Now you're going to see it pretty clearly here. A lot of high pressure builds in. You're going to see lots more flashes of green in this area, stalled out frontal boundary here. Now, why is this area expected to be so wet? High pressure cell on this side, high pressure cell on that side. The two things come together and create some stationary boundary right into this region. But that ridge that's building into the midsection of the country through the weekend, this is now Saturday, getting into Sunday. We're going to watch storms run all around its periphery, all through this area. But this region's going to get very hot and very dry going forward with the stalled out boundary still sitting here, okay? Now keep an eye on this tropical system because as I play out past this Sunday, getting into Monday, just watch the storms roll through this area, okay? This is Monday, getting into Tuesday. We're going to start to question whether or not the remnants of this could start to influence the pattern in the southwest, but this isn't the only tropical system we're concerned about. And there could be more coming out of the East Pacific that could also influence this pattern. You also notice at the end of the ECMWF, and I watched this all weekend, there's this pulse of tropical moisture that seems to be getting through the Gulf of Mexico and trying to move into Texas. But this is, just understand, 10 days from now. But it is showing up in some of the ensembles. Okay, so I want to keep an eye on that as well. So what's going on in the upper levels? We'll watch. This guy's gone. See it up here? As I play from Monday to Tuesday and Wednesday, just out of there. So it's going to send its last shortwave, this one right here, the one we saw going through Ontario. That's the one that goes through this Wednesday night to Thursday. That's our last front, the last cool shot of air in this region. And what happens is the whole pattern makes a flip. And we looked at this last week in the PNA, but I'm just going to draw it out for you. That is the new pattern we're going to be watching for late this week, through the weekend, and into early next week. Now the ensembles are even thrown in here, 597 ridge. So remember, just get that up, to 600, and we're talking about extremely deep ridge for this point in August. And the models want to keep that around through the 23rd, 24th, 25th. Now this is out there at 10 days, and we start to see them attempting to pull it back toward the plains. And as all the models typically do, they just want to let this retrograde west. So you see out here by the 26th, what did it do? Just pulled the ridge, which was sitting over Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, back here over New Mexico. Now I'm going to be honest with you, every time I see the models retrograde a ridge like this, it always just says, okay, I got to ask, is it legitimate? Is it what I expect the forecast to do? And I'm going to tell you something. At this point, I am not 100% sure that the retrograde is right. Now, could I call the duration of the heat in this area? I don't know that I could make an accurate statement on that beyond the next 10 days. But the model's wanting to do that. That's a model thing. It just tends to pull ridges back west. Now, if you notice when I say that, it pulled the center of the ridge here, but it left higher heights across a large part of the central United States. And that's why I think there's a bit longer duration on the heat that's in this area that's coming into the central United States. And it will likely just be there to the end of August. So we've got 5 or 6 more cool days in here. And then I think we open up the whole second half of the month to warmer. And that was not well forecast by any of the long-range forecasting systems we've got out there. Now I'm going to come back to that in a second because I got to first tell you what's going on with the precip. This is just the next 5 days looking at who's got a better chance at getting an inch of rainfall. But you notice as I take this out there, okay, so this is date through the next 5 days. If I just play this out there through the next 10 days, let's stop it right there. There was no change in this. Where it began to change was with the monsoon here across the northern side of the ridge. And if we just play it all the way out to 2 weeks, that's where things start to fill in. They're not filling in with the wetter conditions here. It's all around the periphery of that ridge. We can see that in the week 2 forecasts. So now we're talking about increased storm activity throughout the west. It's in the CPC. It's in the European model. It's also in the GFS as well. with a more extended time period here of quite dry conditions in the midsection of the country. And that gets me thinking here. I'm going to go pull this up. Mississippi River. I haven't taken a close look at this after last week, but with all that heavy rainfall lately, look, it made a rebound to be back up here, 4 feet above low stage. But with that dryness coming in, I think we're going to lose this quickly, and the river's probably going to come back down, continuing this oscillation it's been on for quite some time. So we're just going to have to watch how the central United States deals with this drier weather that's coming in here. All right. Okay, on the temperature side of it, I want to give you some ranks for the start of August. And it's just another way to capture the extensive heat that has been in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida. I mean, just number ones. This meaning it's the warmest stretch of days on the record here in those climate reporting districts. We look at today's all hazards weather map. Through about 5:30 Central Time this morning, we have excessive heat warnings across a large area of our south here. Excessive heat watches getting up into the Carolinas, even clipping Virginia. Flood watches north of that. But again, the heat here has an expiration date. I'm going to show you when that heat finally starts to subside in the Pacific Northwest, where there's expansive heat warnings as well. So here it is. Okay, watch these go away and the heat subside west. Extremely hot today. Portland, 108 degrees Fahrenheit. This is Monday into Tuesday. Cold continues here while heat pours into the west. But for some of us in Texas, like this is the first legitimately near normal or cool day in a very long time. So that's Tuesday getting into Wednesday. The heat comes back on in the south. Thursday. Now watch the transition as I go from late week this week here in the Northwest into the weekend. So there's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now we get this complete reversal of the pattern. The ridge has moved out and opened up here, and it's going to get large. And so all around the periphery, storms are going to run through this area into parts of the Canadian prairie. And the heat dome is going to sit here in the middle part of the country. Now, the next 5 days, here they are. But as we play this out today, 5 through 10, that's the shift. Now, let's just see where the European model is keeping things. Day 10 through 15, you get this sense that it's trying to retreat the ridge and shrink it. So just look, there's day 5 through 10, 10 through 15. Now, this will be the time period over which I have the greatest uncertainty just in the near term to watch and see how that all, does it really shift back into the south and southwest and start to bring in near normal temperatures here? I just think that's yet to be fully determined by this pattern. We could get stuck. It's that time of year in late summer, and late August. That pattern is just trying to, they tend to get stuck. Persistence tends to win. So I'll just watch it all week and report it to you, but I want to give you the latest I've got here early Monday morning. Now, the tropics are another story we have to talk about, and I want to show you an interesting animation. You probably saw some of this in the news, but what I want to show you, see this dot right here? This is when Dora began life over in the East Pacific. But don't forget, the tropical wave that is Dora actually started off in the Atlantic. This is just when we pick it up in the Pacific. We're going to track the winds, the wind field around this as it moved over the last 15 days south of Hawaii. You can see the expanded view there. We talked a lot about what happened in Hawaii last week. It has now crossed the international date line, and as a result, I need to go here and show you it. So see, it's just here right now, and that means we got to have it picked up by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. So this is where Japan kind of takes over and helps us understand where Dora currently is. So Tropical Storm Dora currently sitting right in this area. Now behind Dora we have 8, and then if we come to the Eastern Pacific, we've also got Fernanda, and then this next tropical system behind it. And again, Fernanda kind of comes out like this, but we're going to watch each of these systems that follow to get pulled in to Mexico in the southwest. And the reason why that happens is if the ridge goes there, that's just the prevailing wind. It just gets pulled into that direction. So just something to keep an eye on here in East Pacific. Finally, in the Atlantic, we do have 2 areas, according to the 2 a.m. update today from the National Hurricane Center. We're keeping an eye on. Both have 20% chances of developing, and the probability of getting a tropical depression out of this is showing up at a high chance. Now, do you remember earlier when I said that rain might be coming into Texas 9-10 days from now? This is what we're going to be watching here. The chance for some tropical storms, not a tropical storm, but tropical thunderstorms to be coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, getting pushed into this area. So let's watch this carefully just because the odds are better here. All right. big surprise for me was this. This was the new update given on Friday from the Climate Prediction Center. We're looking at the end of August to beginning of September. And what's interesting about it is that the CPC says the heat that's coming in to finish August doesn't seem to be sticking around according to their forecast update. They've got the heat going essentially back to the way the beginning of August started off. And I can't be settled yet on this end of August pattern and beginning of September pattern. I'm going to have to be honest, just look at things all week because there's a lot of things that are shifting around and moving right now. And I don't think the pattern's settled. I'm sure that the CPC would say the same thing, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. This is their August 26th through September 8th update. Now, the European model has something similar. Can you see that wetter corridor in through here? They're drier in this area, but as I always say, you cannot make a dry forecast in this region during hurricane season. And as we look out here, this is the month from the 25th of August to the 25th of September. And the European model, which very routinely gets stuck on persistence in summer especially, wants to take the heat on and leave it on in this area through the beginning of September. So what's flux? What's moving around? Well, these are the things that are moving around. The heat continues to build off the west coast while the Pacific meridional mode shrinks. El Nino continues to build. We're well over a degree Celsius now in Nino region 3.1. We have typhoon activity to continue to watch, and these typhoons can easily make their way up into the North Pacific Ocean and influence the pattern. And then we've got an extremely warm Atlantic with what will likely be a pretty active hurricane season as we kind of dive headlong into it. But the thing that I keep questioning is on this outlook for September and then beyond is the fact that El Nino seems to be taking over. And what I mean by that is the Southern Oscillation Index is way down here at minus 13 where it stayed, which means the trade winds are beginning to behave in that way. The MJO is expected to move into the Central Pacific. And these are all telltale signs of El Nino beginning to get a grip on this pattern. Remember, our government, the CPC, has released their forecast. I showed you this on Friday of keeping this all the way around till spring. And as a result of that, you're going to start to hear a lot of winter forecasts coming up on what to expect. And I thought I would just preface this, even though I'm unsettled on what the next month is going to look like, I will show you that you're going to see a whole lot of this. So we have a developing El Nino, and historically, we are drier in a couple of spots. We have a lot of wet weather that comes into California and an active subtropical jet that runs along the southern tier of the United States. We just tend to be wetter in these areas, drier, and where I've drawn these circles. Now we can do the same exercise here with temperatures. Let's flip that over. And again, we're looking at those developing El Nino years. And you'll notice that there is going to be a strong bias to be above normal in terms of temperatures north and cooler than normal south. And if this El Nino pans out and is as strong as forecast, this is what history would tell us. Now, I want to be clear about something. When you see the warmer conditions to the north, this does not mean like a hot winter. It's just less cold than normal. And down here to the south, it's just cooler than normal. We always have a wildly fluctuating temperature pattern in winter. So sometimes these long-range winter forecasts where you look at 3 months and try to get the averages, it doesn't truly capture what we deal with day in and day out. So I just thought I would throw that out there as we kind of start to wrap this up. Also, coming up very soon, we're going to have to talk a whole lot more about South America. And one of the big reasons for that is in a month from now, we're going to be able to see, planting in South America. And I just wanted to stress that over the next 10 days, we do have better moisture getting into parts of southern Brazil, very far southern Brazil and Argentina, areas that have been in drought. And we're going to wait on the monsoon to come right into this area. So a lot more discussion coming up about South America soon. But with that, thank you for giving me some time here on your Monday morning, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks.